on if you don't have a country.
And I would add to this. Look at Donald Trump. For 25 years, he has been speaking against these phony so-called free trade deals, which have destroyed America. He has been speaking out about this since 1988. There's a tape of him on the Oprah Winfrey Show slamming these free trade deals, which have destroyed the American middle class, the American working man, our country. Basically, they've sold out our country to this globalist regime. So he's been consistent on that for 25 years. Donald Trump is, as strange as it sounds, considering he's a billionaire, he is the classic small businessman. He owns his own company. He does not have to answer to shareholders. He does not have to answer to Wall Street financiers. He runs his company the way he wants it. This is what the right wing in America used to be made up of. The right in America, the old right, before the neoconservatives, before the National Review ever existed, consisted of Main Street businessmen who owned factories in small towns across America. Before those factories were all driven out of business by the New Deal regulation, and all of our productive industrial capacity got consolidated into conglomerates, and then Wall Street finance conglomerates, and then globalist multinational conglomerates. There used to be small factories in every small town in America that employed working people. Donald Trump fits that model. He is an old-style conservative, small c conservative. What happened in the 1950s after the New Deal came into effect and drove the backbone of the American right into extinction, then you had this academic conservatism that arose that was based on theoretical theology. Basically, medieval theology of neoconservatism and libertarianism and what is a free market, and you get rid of, and it was really closer to the progressivism of the turn of the last century of economic efficiency, and you got the time and motion studies and the guy with the, the stopwatch on the assembly line figuring out how everything works. And that type of conservatism has more in common with communism than it does with the old traditional conservatism. Donald Trump is a traditional values conservative. You look at his family, he doesn't have a bunch of the heirs of his family, considering Donald Trump is a billionaire and has this huge fortune. His children, and they were raised in Manhattan. Most people in that situation, their kids are into coke and hookers. And they dance on tables at nightclubs like Paris Hilton. That's not what Donald Trump's kids do. They work hard. They get up.
They're grounded.
They're grounded in the traditional cultural values. And that's what Donald Trump is talking about. The cultural values, the conservative cultural values of America, of hard work. We have a country. We work hard. I don't care if you're African American, Jewish American, Hispanic American. We share something. We share a country. We share the values. We share the ambition to get ahead. And that is true conservatism. And this theoretical nonsense of who's the real conservative, and do you go down this list of issues and da-da-da, and have you done this, have you do that, do you believe in Adam Smith? And actually, if you go into Adam Smith, you'll see that Donald Trump is closer to the Adam Smith theory anyway, but that's all yesterday's news. That is all yesterday's news, really. So Donald Trump is, can he deliver what he promises? As John said, he is not beholden to the shareholders. He's not beholden to the Wall Street banksters. He's the first guy who's in a position. Now, I don't want to badmouth any other candidates, but you got a lot of candidates out there that, say one thing, but you look at where they get their money from. You look at, look, let me be blunt here, okay? I'm sure Ted Cruz is a nice guy. He worked in the Bush administration. He's been in politics his whole life. He graduated from, Harvard or Princeton?
Harvard.
His wife works for Goldman Sachs. was on the Council on Foreign Relations, worked for the U.S. trade representative who's been negotiating all these trade deals that have been selling our country out. She wrote the chapter for the Council on Foreign Relations on the North American Union, on how we have to have a North American Union merging the United States with Mexico and Canada. She said, oh, yeah, but I wrote that thing that it should be done by the private sector, not by the government. Well, there is no difference. When you've got a crony capitalist operation, of course they call it the private sector that's merging our countries together. That's what happened. Donald Trump says, if Ford wants to build a plant in Mexico, I'm going to tell him build it here. If Ford wants to build a plant in Mexico, that's the private sector merging us into a North American Union, folks. That's what Heidi Cruz wrote the chapter on, saying we should be doing. So, anyway, Trump can deliver because he doesn't have fetters on him. He is not tied to the big banksters that have been running our country into the ground.
Milton, we hope we've answered your question. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network live in New Hampshire.